What's up, America? How are all of you doing on this Martin Luther King holiday weekend? I am Kiara Ashanti. This is the Business Intercept. It's the weekend, so we're a little bit more casual. No jacket, no dress shirt. And you know what? It's good because there's so much going on right now that I don't even have time to try and get all prettied up for everybody. It's ridiculous. So we're going to jump right into this because things are starting to get really critical right now. Everything that's going on is just out of control, completely and totally. After this video, just get over some of the details. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when a new video is coming out. And more importantly, if you have comments, questions, or anything of that sort, please put them in the comment section below. So, right now, the purge continues. The purge expands. And expands in areas that I don't think anybody would have thought about even 5 years ago, even maybe even 3 years ago. What we're beginning to see throughout the business marketplace right now is extreme. It's scary, and I'm going to add a little context into this for you. So you've seen the photo snip on YouTube. It is time for big tech to be canceled. It's no longer if. There's no longer any discussions that need to be. That's not what we do. If you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, then your aversion to cancel culture, your aversion to boycotts, I'm telling you right up front, going to have to kick that down the road. I'm sorry, it's over. It's over. You cannot fight with both hands tied behind your back any longer. So we're going to get into this. So let's start with what we already know, okay? So everybody knows Amazon Web Services got rid of Parler and essentially shut them down. We know that Google and Apple won't allow them on the App Store, which of course doesn't allow you to download the app onto your phone. But everything that's going on with Parler is actually worse than we ever could have imagined. Because, see, it's not just the upfront companies that allow you access to the app that are taking Parler away. It's not just Amazon, which is taking away its cloud servers where all of its information is housed, like many of the other companies in this business space. It's also a lot more of the back-end infrastructure that you wouldn't think would be activated against a company that has been. So, for example, this company right here that you see, Twilio, I've never heard of this company, but apparently they are an SMS company. If you've ever had to double verify where you are trying to, log into a website and they ask for your phone number or email and then they send it to you for you to then input a code into the app or into the website, that's how they verify that you are who you say you are and not some sort of bot or something. Okay, so it's a security feature, and if you're in a space where security is a concern, where you're worried about, again, bots sending out fake tweets, fake parlays, fake posts, this is one of the ways that they combat that. For instance, even in the IRS, for example, if you try to sign in to an online account with the IRS, they will send you a text first with a code. You put that in, and that verifies that you are whom you say you are, to the best of anybody's ability. So that security feature is a good thing for an app like Parler to have. They dropped them. Now, this isn't a company that the average person would even know is affiliated with Parler or any other company for that matter, because it's back in behind the scenes infrastructure. Also, if you've ever heard of the company Slack, it's kind of like the new style of intercompany messaging board, a little bit simpler than most of the solutions that have been in the marketplace before, and certainly a lot less expensive than a company having its own solution. But not only that, but it lets you have a messaging service between you and, say, contractors that you might be, or other employees that are in a completely different state. They dropped Parler. So a lot of the information, like the email list, getting in contact with their employees that actually oversees questionable parlays, all of that is shut down. Essentially, the tech space got together, had a phone call or something, and decided en masse to just completely destroy this company in every single possible way that you can think of. Now, that's scary, but it gets worse. It gets completely worse. Here is a story from the other day. Curt Schilling, Hall of Fame baseball player, says AIG Insurance, one of the largest insurance companies in the United States and the world, canceled a policy of his specifically because of pro-Trump social media posts. Now, I want you to think about that. Schilling didn't put any posts that were about the election being stolen. He didn't put any posts online about supporting what happened at the Capitol or supporting riots. He didn't do anything that we saw companies en masse do for Black Lives Matter, people do for Black Lives Matter. I mean, LeBron James is running around the court with Black Lives Matter on his shirt, Black Lives Matter on the basketball court, as they're burning down American cities. We didn't see any of that from Curt Schilling. But AIG decided to cancel his policy anyway. Now, multiple outlets reached out to AIG about this, and they have not answered a single person's inquiry, email, text, nothing. It's been silence from AIG for 2 days. You know what that means? That means what he reported is true, and the company's scrambling with their lawyers and with their PR team trying to figure out what to do. So not only do we now, not only as conservatives, but Americans, because believe me, this pendulum is going over to the right, but it will swing the other side because that's just the way life is. So not only do we have to worry about not having the ability to post on social media, to online get in contact and find out information from different sources that are conservative leaning because these companies have been banned or are getting banned, but we now as individuals have to worry about losing certain products, health insurance, auto insurance, life insurance, who knows what it might be, because you decide to be a conservative and support a conservative president. If that isn't Cuba, China, Russia, I don't know what is. And what makes it worse is it's not coming from the government, which is what we've always worried about. We've always worried as a country collectively that the government would overstep its boundaries and its authority and suppress or curtail the rights of Americans. But what we have now is not just one monopolistic company like Amazon or Google doing this. We're seeing other companies do this. What in the hell is going on in America today? I mean, how does AIG think that is at all American? And it doesn't stop there, okay? This other story came in. Gun rights group, a nonprofit that just basically what they do is advocate for the Second Amendment, certain laws. Think of the NRA, it's similar to that, but a much smaller organization based out of Virginia. So they focus in a lot on gun rights within the Virginia area. As we know, if you follow that whole issue, the governor of Virginia was trying to do some things that this particular nonprofit was fighting against. Well, MailChimp has decided to kick them off for unspecified serious risk. Now, let me explain to you what MailChimp is in case you've never heard of it before. Okay? MailChimp is an email marketing service. So if you are a business online and you keep track of your customers and you send out either newsletters or emails to your customer list or customer base, MailChimp is one of the services on the web and one of the most well-known that helps manage that. So what you would do, let's say you've got 2,000 emails and you want to send out a newsletter. You would have that preset defined in your MailChimp system and just go in, put in what your new message is, hit send, and it automatically sends all the emails to your email list. If someone on the email list decides that they want to unsubscribe from the email list, they hit the unsubscribe button and MailChimp automatically takes that person off of the email list for you. You don't have to go in there manually and do it. So again, this is back-end infrastructure. Okay, this is a part of the business, so to speak, of an organization with specifically the people that support them. So, you know, when you send out a tweet, when you send out a parlay, when you send out a Facebook post, you might have specific friends on Facebook, followers on Parler or Twitter that will see that. But of course, unless you've done something to lock your system, the world at large can see your tweet, post, or what have you. Newsletters are different because people have to opt into your newsletter. So they are telling you, we are interested in what your organization is doing or selling. So it's a very one-to-one relationship. It's not, you know, when you send out a newsletter to your email list, it's not blasted out to the rest of the world as well. This matters, and I go through this to explain that because what MailChimp is doing is stepping literally directly in between an organization and its customer base. And in order for them to even know what's in the newsletter that you're sending, they're using tools that allow them to either read it or search it with AI. Now, they have not reported or said what this grievance was. And this is pretty standard we're beginning to see. Well, they'll kick a conservative company off their service, ban them, throttle them, whatever you want to call it, and then not exactly tell you what it was that you did wrong. So this happens a lot on YouTube. Well, they'll pull off your video saying that you violated the terms of service and not tell you what video or what section of a video violated it. Now with the video, it's a little bit harder because, you know, your video could be anywhere from 10 minutes long to an hour long, depending on what type of videos you're doing on YouTube. But literally on Facebook or Twitter or some of these other other situations, whether it's MailChimp, again, AWS and Parler, they said that they kept violating terms of service, but didn't specify what it was specifically that they had done to violate it. And that doesn't even get into the point of, if all of this is wrong, if these types of risk or violent language or whatever it is that these companies are saying that they're trying to police, if that's true, then what about all of the other customers? Because I can guarantee you, MailChimp is one of the largest email newsletter email list companies that's used on the internet. I guarantee you there are multiple Black Lives Matter organizations, if not the crown jewel Black Lives Matter itself, using MailChimp. And they were using those newsletters to organize. Those newsletters for certain had language in there inflammatory toward police, conservatives, white Americans. I guarantee you that, because that's all we've heard from Black Lives Matter since their inception. So once again, this goes to, if you have a standard, is that standard being equally applied to everybody? And the answer, of course, is no. So let's look at the context of what's happening, because what we have here is, I believe, a mixture of collusion between companies like Twitter, Google, and Amazon, and a herd mentality. So when the Black Lives Matter protests during the summer started in May, and then followed throughout from May through August, essentially, we saw destruction of cities, of businesses, of lives. Well over 23 plus people have died during the Black Lives Matter riots. But what did corporate America do? Were they divesting themselves of customers that were supportive of the riots, that were saying relatively positive things about the riots or justifying them? No. They were holding fundraisers for Black Lives Matter. They were putting up black squares to show their alliance with Black Lives Matter. They didn't have anything to say about what was happening in Portland or Seattle or in Kennesaw or Detroit or Chicago. They didn't have anything to say about that. One of the most famous churches in this country was burned in Washington, D.C. And the media went on and on about how it was improper for President Trump to call in the National Guard. An editor at the New York Times got fired for allowing a U.S. senator to write an op-ed about why the National Guard calling them up was appropriate in dealing with the riots. Now, here we are, 200 people rioted at a Trump rally for the first time in 5 years, and all of a sudden, all these liberals want is the National Guard everywhere, and all of a sudden, business is standing on principle against violence and riots. That's what's going on, and the hypocrisy is like, neck deep. So here's the thing. Republicans, conservatives, we don't like cancel culture. We don't believe that if you disagree with me, if you say something that's offensive to me, if you say something that could hurt my little feelings, we don't believe that your business should be harmed, or that you should be fired, or that you should be berated online. That's typically not what we believe in. We don't do long-standing boycotts. These are the tools of the left. And unfortunately, that's going to have to stop. Republicans, conservatives, hear what I'm telling you right now. We are going to have to start using the power of the purse in the same manner as liberals. Because if we don't, we're going to lose this portion of the war. At the end of the day, these companies have to stay in business. And if their bottom lines are hurt, they'll be forced to at least show or pretend a level of respect, even if they don't really have it. But as long as they know or believe that they'll be punished more by liberals than by Republicans and conservatives, they're going to keep canceling and banning all of us. And that cannot be allowed. Yes, we are 50% of the country, but if that 50% is willing to do nothing but bitch and moan and continue using these companies' products, then what are we going to do? So let me give you an example. Amazon Web Services. Now, that's a division of Amazon, and most consumers are not using that, obviously. That's a B2B business service, unless you've got a really large personal blog where you're trying to hold videos, photos, content, and you want your own server to do that versus using something like a Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Unless you're doing that, you probably would have never heard of Amazon Web Services. But I bet you have heard of Amazon Prime. Yes. And I want you to think about something. Okay? Amazon decided unintellectually, honestly, completely dishonestly, in general, to take down Parler. Something that, frankly, is, I believe, shows discrimination against a different type of political philosophy, which is illegal, especially for Amazon Web Services, since they have contracts with the federal government and are therefore subject to the same rules and regulations that any other governmental office would have to follow. They are essentially a entity temporarily of the government when they sign on to be a contractor for them. Okay, so they're doing that. What they did is un-American in terms of the First Amendment, and there's probably some antitrust and collusion on the business side going on there with Google and Facebook, particularly, well, more so with Twitter, because Twitter and Facebook uses their servers as well. Okay, so they squashed a competitor of one of their customers. That's a problem. Okay, so honestly, at this point, there shouldn't be any more Amazon Prime. And this is what I mean. We all love Amazon Prime. We like to get free shipping. We like to be able to look at the Amazon Prime videos. That's all well and good. Costs you about $119 a year for that. Imagine, however, if the 75 million people who voted for Trump decided to cancel their Amazon Prime memberships. Now, I know that not all 75 million have Amazon Prime. It's not really the point, okay? But a whole lot of them do. Okay, so we're just going to use the 75 million number for an illustration sake, okay? Let's say they all, en masse, either because of this video, because of other people who are beginning to kind of organize ways to combat this type of censorship. If they decided to cancel their Amazon Prime membership, okay, that's how much this is how much money Amazon would lose. Close to $9 billion. $9 billion. Now listen, I know that Bezos is, well, now he's the second richest man in the world, in America, behind Elon Musk, I believe. They probably go back and forth. But either way, he's got a lot of money. Amazon makes a lot of money. But I guarantee you, no matter how much money he's making, no matter how much money Amazon making, they're not going to want to take a $9 billion hit. The chairman, the board is not gonna have that. Their stockholders are not having that. That would affect their earnings significantly. Significantly. You take that $9 billion from Jeff Bezos, and he is on the phone with Pollard and Ted Cruz and any other conservative or outlet that you can think of to talk about how he's reevaluating their decision and how they're now working with the company to come to an accommodation. That would happen within a day or two, guaranteed. So the question becomes, why haven't conservatives done that? And the answer is simply that we just don't believe in that type of collective action. But at this point, the left is using tools and are in the position to use weapons against us that we have to start using against them. You have to fight fire with fire sometimes. When the settlers came over here and had to confront all of the fights with the Indians, one of the things that allowed them to do that was that they had guns and the Indians didn't. In Europe at one point, I believe it was England, don't quote me on that, but at one point I believe England got to the point where they had longbows and their foes didn't. And because longbows could go further with more force, they were hard to beat. Over in China, when the Mongols started raiding and then turned into the horde and came to fight the Chinese armies, one of the things that they had on their side was all those horses. They had an advantage. This is the same thing. Liberals have the advantage because they're willing to collectively, as consumers, make noise that they will disparage and boycott businesses or individuals, or will disparage and boycott businesses if businesses don't stop associating with particular individuals or businesses. Because these tech people are liberals and leftists themselves and have the position of power, they will collectively decide to use it. And we're seeing that now. Just like we saw a rush to show support for Black Lives Matter, a rush to show support for the underlining message that the riots were about from businesses, or just ignoring that the riots were happening. We're seeing the same thing now. Companies rushing to show a certain virtue by saying, we're going to stand up against this type of hatred. And the type of hatred they're going to stand up for is anything that's considered conservative whatsoever, even if it's not violent, and even if the comments made are no more or less violent than what the left are saying. Because at the end of the day, remember, if all of this was happening equally, not only would there be less outrage, but there wouldn't be anything for conservatives to complain about. If you're going to kick off Bill Maher off Twitter, if you're going to kick off some of the New York Times editors for the things that they say, at the same time you're doing it to conservative commentators and saying, look, you're both going to have to take your rhetoric down a few notches if you're going to be on a platform, that would be fine. But that's not what's happening. And so what conservatives are confronted with now is, what are we going to do in order to make that start happening? Because the idea of coming up with our own infrastructure in terms of our own cloud services, our own SMS businesses, our own financial transaction business, all of that smart things to do, but takes more time than we have right now. There's only two ways to change this. Politically, in terms of our representatives, be they state or in the Congress, and the power of our purses. So I would call on you right now. Do not use Amazon anymore. Cancel your Amazon Prime membership. If you have any other type of service monthly with Amazon, get rid of it. If you happen to have a company that does use MailChimp, cancel it, go to a different newsletter service. The companies that you see on this little PDF here, Amazon, MailChimp, Twitter, AIG, Twilio, send them emails or Twitter comments about how un-American they're being. Let them know that there is 150 million people in America who are conservative that will hold them financially accountable if they continue to do the un-American things that they're doing. Now, that's going to be it for this particular video. If you have any comments, any questions, any disagreement with what I just said or proposed, please put them in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so when the next video comes out, you'll be notified.